In the heart of a secluded forest, nestled among the dense trees and winding paths, stood the Whispering Pines Inn. It was a place forgotten by time, its exterior weathered and worn, its windows fogged with age. Yet for those who stumbled upon it, the inn held a mysterious allure, drawing them in with promises of respite from the outside world. It was a cold, stormy night when Sarah and her friends, Emma and Michael, found themselves stranded on a desolate road in the middle of nowhere. Their car had broken down, leaving them with no choice but to seek shelter for the night. With no cell service and no nearby towns in sight, they trudged through the rain until they stumbled upon the Whispering Pines Inn. Despite its eerie appearance, the inn's warm glow beckoned them inside. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Hawthorne, greeted them with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We're completely booked tonight," Mr. Hawthorne said, his voice a low rumble. "But we have one room left." Grateful for any shelter, Sarah accepted the offer, ignoring the strange feeling that crept over her as Mr. Hawthorne handed her the key to room 13. As Sarah settled into her room, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that washed over her. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, the floorboards creaking beneath her weight as if alive. Ignoring her growing sense of dread, she tried to reassure herself that it was just her imagination running wild. But when night fell, strange things began to happen. Whispers echoed through the halls, chilling Sarah to the bone. Shadows danced in the corners of her room, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. And then came the tapping on the window, a rhythmic sound that seemed to beckon her closer. Terrified, Sarah huddled under the covers, praying for morning to come quickly. The next day, Sarah confided in Emma and Michael about her night of terror. To her surprise, they both admitted to experiencing similar disturbances in their own rooms. "There's something wrong with this place," Emma said, her voice trembling. "I can feel it in my bones." Determined to uncover the truth, the trio set out to explore the inn, searching for any clues that might explain the strange occurrences. As they delved deeper into its history, they uncovered a dark secret. The Whispering Pines Inn was built on the site of an ancient burial ground, cursed by vengeful spirits seeking retribution for their disturbed resting place. Realizing they were in grave danger, Sarah, Emma, and Michael knew they had to escape before it was too late. But the spirits of the inn had other plans, trapping them within its walls and feeding off their fear. With each passing hour, the inn grew more malevolent, its whispers growing louder, its shadows more sinister. Sarah, Emma, and Michael knew they were running out of time. Desperate for a way out, they stumbled upon an old journal hidden in the inn's attic. Written by a former guest, the journal detailed their own encounter with the spirits, along with a ritual for banishing them once and for all. Armed with newfound knowledge, the trio set about performing the ritual, their hands trembling as they chanted the ancient incantations. But as they neared the end, a powerful force surged through the inn, threatening to consume them whole. With one final push, Sarah, Emma, and Michael completed the ritual, a blinding light engulfing the inn as the spirits were banished from this world forever. As the sun rose on a new day, Sarah, Emma, and Michael emerged from the Whispering Pines Inn, their bodies weary but their spirits triumphant. Though the horrors they had faced would haunt them for years to come, they knew they had prevailed against the darkness. As they walked away from the inn, its weathered facade fading into the distance, Sarah couldn't help but glance back one last time. And in that moment, she swore she heard the faintest whisper on the wind, a whispered promise of peace, of redemption, of a world untouched by the horrors of the past. But whether it was a trick of the mind or something more, Sarah knew one thing for certain. The Whispering Pines Inn would always hold a place in her nightmares, a reminder of the thin line between the living and the dead, between reality and the unknown. It was a moonless night when Emily and her friends, Mark and Sarah, decided to embark on a road trip across the country. Their journey led them through desolate highways, winding roads, and eerie landscapes. As the night crept in, they found themselves in the heart of nowhere, with only a flickering neon sign indicating the presence of a motel, the Whispering Pines Motel. Reluctantly, they pulled into the dimly lit parking lot, greeted by the sight of a dilapidated building looming in the darkness. Despite their reservations, exhaustion overtook their apprehensions, and they decided to spend the night at the peculiar motel. The receptionist, an elderly woman with a haunting stare, welcomed them with a toothless grin. "Room for 3, please," Emily requested, trying to ignore the chill that ran down her spine. The receptionist handed them a single key and muttered, "Room 13. Enjoy your stay." Her voice trailed off as if lost in the whispers of the night. As they made their way down the narrow corridor, they couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Room 13 stood at the end of the hallway, its door slightly ajar, inviting them in with a creak. Upon entering, they were met with a musty scent that permeated the air. The room was shrouded in darkness, save for the feeble glow of the bedside lamp. The walls were adorned with faded wallpaper, and the furniture seemed to be relics from a bygone era. Ignoring the unsettling atmosphere, they settled in for the night, hoping to find solace in sleep. As the night deepened, strange occurrences began to unfold. Mark awoke to the sound of whispers echoing through the room. At first, he dismissed it as a figment of his imagination, but the voices persisted, growing louder and more menacing with each passing moment. "Did you hear that?" Mark whispered, nudging Emily and Sarah awake. They strained their ears, catching fragments of unintelligible whispers that seemed to emanate from the shadows themselves. Fear gripped their hearts as they huddled together, seeking comfort in each other's presence. As the night wore on, the whispers escalated into guttural cries that reverberated through the room. Shadows danced along the walls, taking on sinister shapes that seemed to mock their terror. Unable to bear the torment any longer, Emily reached for the bedside lamp, but the light flickered and died, plunging them into darkness once more. In the dim light of their phones, they caught glimpses of something lurking in the corners of the room, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes that pierced through the night. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they made a desperate dash for the door, but it refused to budge, as if held shut by an unseen force. Panic-stricken, they frantically searched for another way out, their hands trembling as they fumbled for the window latch. With a collective effort, they managed to pry it open, the cool night air offering a brief respite from the suffocating confines of the room. As they prepared to leap to safety, a bone-chilling wail echoed through the motel, freezing them in their tracks. They turned to see the shadowy figure looming in the doorway, its eyes ablaze with malice. In a moment of desperation, Emily reached into her pocket and retrieved a small talisman she had received from her grandmother, a token of protection against malevolent spirits. With trembling hands, she held it aloft, chanting an incantation passed down through generations. To their astonishment, the shadow recoiled, its form dissipating into wisps of darkness that faded into the night. With the curse broken, they fled the motel, never looking back as they raced towards the safety of the open road. As dawn broke on the horizon, they found themselves a safe distance away from the Whispering Pines Motel. Though shaken by their ordeal, they were grateful to have escaped with their lives. Word of their encounter spread like wildfire, drawing the attention of paranormal investigators and thrill-seekers alike. The motel gained notoriety as a hotbed of supernatural activity, its dark past shrouded in mystery and dread. Years later, long after their harrowing experience had faded into memory, Emily, Mark, and Sarah returned to the site of the Whispering Pines Motel. In its place stood an empty lot, the echoes of their terror lost to the winds of time. But as they gazed upon the desolate landscape, they couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered in the shadows, a whisper of the past that refused to be forgotten. And so, the legend of the Whispering Pines Motel lived on, a cautionary tale for those who dared to tread its haunted halls. Once upon a moonless night, nestled among the whispering pines of a forgotten forest, stood the Ravenwood Inn. Its weathered facade, adorned with peeling paint and cracked windows, seemed to exhale a sense of foreboding that sent shivers down the spine of any weary traveler who dared to approach. The stories surrounding the Ravenwood Inn were whispered in hushed tones by locals, tales of inexplicable disappearances and haunting echoes that lingered long after the last guest had checked out. Despite the warnings, Sarah, a curious journalist seeking to uncover the truth behind the rumors, found herself drawn to the dilapidated inn like a moth to a flame. As she stepped through the creaking doors of the Ravenwood Inn, a chill slithered down her spine, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The lobby was dimly lit by flickering candles, casting dancing shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Sarah approached the front desk, where an elderly man with hollow eyes greeted her with a crooked smile. "Welcome to the Ravenwood Inn," he rasped, his voice laden with a strange mixture of wariness and anticipation. "How may I assist you?" Ignoring the warning bells ringing in her mind, Sarah flashed a smile and handed over her ID, claiming she was checking in for the night. The man's smile widened, revealing a row of yellow teeth, and he handed her a tarnished key before disappearing into the shadows. Alone in her room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled like a heavy fog around her. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the walls seemed to whisper secrets long forgotten. Determined to uncover the truth, she unpacked her camera and set out to explore the inn's winding corridors. With each step, the oppressive silence seemed to press down on her, suffocating her senses. As she rounded a corner, Sarah stumbled upon a locked door, its rusted hinges groaning in protest as she pushed against it. With a final shove, the door swung open, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. Curiosity getting the better of her, Sarah descended into the depths of the inn, the stale air clinging to her skin like a shroud. At the bottom of the stairs, she found herself in a dimly lit chamber, its walls lined with rows of dusty bottles and decaying furniture. As she explored further, Sarah's footsteps echoed through the silence, each sound magnified by the oppressive stillness of the room. Suddenly, she froze as she caught sight of something moving in the shadows, a flicker of movement that seemed to vanish as quickly as it had appeared. Heart pounding in her chest, Sarah reached for her camera, capturing the darkness on film before it could slip away. But as she reviewed the photos, she realized with a sinking feeling that there was something lurking in the shadows, something not quite human. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah pressed on, following the faint sound of whispers that seemed to lead her deeper into the labyrinthine inn. With each step, the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that echoed through the darkness. Finally, she stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its walls adorned with faded tapestries and crumbling statues. In the center of the room, a single candle burned with an otherworldly flame, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls. As Sarah approached, she felt a chill run down her spine, and she knew she was not alone. From the darkness emerged a figure cloaked in shadow, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. "You should not have come here," it hissed, its voice like ice on her skin. "This place belongs to us now." But Sarah refused to back down, her resolve strengthened by the truth she sought to uncover. With a trembling hand, she reached for her camera, snapping a photo of the figure before it could disappear into the darkness once more. As the flash illuminated the room, Sarah gasped in horror at what she saw. The figure was not alone. Surrounding it were countless shadows, their twisted forms writhing in the flickering light. With a scream, Sarah turned to flee, but it was too late. The shadows descended upon her, engulfing her in darkness as she was pulled into their embrace. And as the last echoes of her screams faded into the night, the Ravenwood Inn stood silent once more, its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and decay, waiting for the next unsuspecting traveler to uncover its chilling truth.